And even these recruiting companies are also limited by so many other aspects, right?
Yeah.
It's about like whom do I know or where am I located, and maybe they're just very good at what they do, very good at sourcing as a function. And maybe they don't have the sales skills or the marketing skills. But it's unfortunate that they don't get the access to these enterprises, which, where the need is actually there.
That's on the business development side.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. Yeah.
But if you look at the idea of CBREX, like the main thing is that, hey, can we build a platform which can aggregate the best sourcing talent in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's how CBREX started. Like these are people who are in multiple locations, maybe 5,000 locations in the world. Locations, right? Different cities.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody knows who they are.
Right.
They're damn good at what they do. They're very small, and they probably remain small all their lives. They're like 2, 3, 4 people. It's like craftsman, right? It's like a boutique skill, right? Again, it's not a skill set, but they're damn good, right? Is it possible to bring them together on one platform and then build technology which can identify these people, like who are the good ones for particular skill areas, particular geographies? That, if you ask me, was the beginning of CBREX.
So, what are the tangible results that can be expected out of this process?
Hi, welcome to another episode of Swipe Right for Talent. So this one is slightly different from a format perspective. My co-host here is Divya Chethan.
Hi, Gautam.
Welcome, Divya. So Divya and I have again known each other for like decades, right, Divya? So this time we thought, and Divya and I have been discussing this for a while. We thought that we'll focus this one. Most of our other episodes have also been on recruiters and recruitment. But because both you and I have spent years doing this, so this time we'll be completely focused on the recruiting industry and recruiters as a profession, right? Because I think that's something which both of us have seen, right, over many, many years now. And most of the people who listen to our podcast, Swipe Right for Talent, are either recruiters themselves, right, or they have something to do with the industry, recruitment industry. So I think it'll be fairly relevant for that audience and those listeners, right? So we'll focus completely on this. But Divya has insisted that this one she will start by asking questions. Normally I start that by asking questions. So over to you, Divya, and go ahead.
Hi, Gautam. So this is going to be different. It's going to be interesting because I've known you for maybe more than 25 years now. And I was probably just fresh out of college, starting off in the recruiting space. And I think we've come a long way, having this chat as co-founders and talking about recruiting and AI. And I think back then when I started off, in the recruiting space, there was probably just maybe some spreadsheets that we would use and just a phone that we would have. And there were maybe a couple of job boards, or probably back then I think even job boards didn't exist, right? So it's been a long journey. Yeah. And today it's incredible that we're actually going to be talking about AI. And finally, I think we're going to see something, some kind of innovation happening in recruiting. So this is going to be interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to this.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that, which I think we must cover at some point, is the emotional attachment we have to the profession.
Absolutely.
Right? Because this is something which has given us everything and made us who we are today. Going back, as you said, like 25 years ago, right? When we first met. And I think that is something which, we owe it to
the recruiting sector.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that, we've been trying to do and hopefully successful in some measure is trying to build pride in the recruiter community through the podcast, right? Yes. Telling them what kind of a job they are doing, and I don't think it's said enough, right? In the overall corporate environment. So that's the other part of it, right? And one also does it because this is something which as I said, like this is something which has given us whatever we have today, right? Professionally, money wise, right? Satisfaction wise. So yeah, we also owe it to just give it back.
In fact, coming from a family of doctors, and I chose recruiting as a profession, so everybody was skeptical about it. But having said that, I think I've thoroughly enjoyed my career. and the way it's progressed, and of course, co-founding Cibrex with you and the journey so far. I think it's been an incredible experience. So definitely we owe a lot to the recruiting fraternity. Yeah, it's been an enjoyable journey. And so you've been, like an entrepreneur in the recruiting space for the last over 25 years.
Yeah, more than I would like to remember.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think you also, built and sold one of the most successful recruiting organizations way back in 2008, 2009, TVA Infotech. You sold it to Allegiance Group. So, from your perspective, what do you think has been the single most challenging aspect of talent acquisition, which probably exists even till date?
I think if you look at the TA along the lines of a spectrum, right? To begin with, if you look at the late 90s, the problem with TA was how do I access a candidate, right? Access to a candidate was very limited, right? Because there was no job boards, there was no internet, right? Internet had just about started, but internet was not the way we see it today, right? It was very, very limited. So I think the access problem to the candidates got solved with the job boards. I think the job boards created a revolution where they made candidate access democratic. Right? Anybody with a license to a job board could get in touch with the candidate, which was not the case in the 90s, right? Like, how would you access? Because these are not publicly available databases, right?
Right.
So that was the first big change, right, in TA with the coming of job boards, right? And of course, LinkedIn changed a lot of it because it made it just the biggest database in the world. Right? You had all the candidates, potential candidates in the world on one platform. So that was a big change. So that problem got solved maybe 20 years ago, the access, right? And that is a big problem to solve, right? But as that problem got solved, other problems emerged, right? Like the problem of junk, right? Because you have too many candidates, right? So it flipped, right? Earlier you had very little because there was no access. Now with a lot of access, the problem shifted, right? Like, hey, I just have 100 candidates or 500 candidates. Now what do I do with it? Because I can't process 500 candidates, right? Or it'll take me months to process 500 candidates. So the whole TA function started shifting towards process efficiency, right? I have solved the access problem, or job board solved it. How do I make it more efficient, right? And if you remember, Divya, when we were working together at TVA, we were trying to solve this problem through the RPO.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you remember 2004, 2005, RPO was still a very, very nascent concept. And when you and I would go and pitch it to companies, people would say, what are you saying? Right? How can we outsource the sourcing function, like talent sourcing function? Like, it's not possible. Right? So, but it happened, right? We did it, others did it, and then it's now become like a household name. Like anybody in the TA function knows what RPO is all about.
Yeah.
Right, because RPO was all about process efficiency. How can I make the process of hiring more efficient?
Yeah. In fact, that reminds me. So way back in, I think, 2002, 2003, and that was ages ago, right? And that was the time when we were probably doing headhunting, and we hardly had access to any kind of job boards and so on. And back then, you would talk about RPO. Where organizations would actually outsource recruiting. It could be in projects, it could be jobs, in whatever format, but you would talk about it. And we would look at you as if you had gone bonkers. Right? Yeah. Because that was something that we could just not fathom, if something like this could even be a reality. But then it did become a reality. It ended up becoming a reality. And even till date, it's so relevant and it's thriving. Right? So how did the original RPO look like back then? Right, the traditional RPO as we call it, and also what was it actually designed to solve?
Yeah, so great question, and I remember 2002 when I used to talk about RPO, everybody would look at me like I had gone bonkers, yeah. Right? And maybe there was some part of me was like, oh shit, have I really gone bonkers? Like, is it really like almost impossible to imagine that a time would come where companies would outsource? I think the main thing in my mind is because I had spent some years in the software industry before TBA. I used to work with Wipro. And I had seen the offshore on-site model, right, which is how the software services industry evolved, where you had about 4 or 5 guys sitting on-site at a customer place. And you had this whole offshore team sitting in Bangalore at that time, and then maybe Hyderabad later. which were basically working on the same project. So you had 5 people doing customer interface, getting the requirement from the customer, talking to the end client, which is the project managers at the customer side. And you had maybe 100, 200, maybe even 1,000 people sitting in Bangalore, doing the coding and the back-end work. So it was an on-site, offshore combination. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, that is how I visualize RPO. I said, if that can happen in software, where a company has outsourced, the whole IT piece, right? Which again was, imagine in the 90s, it was very difficult to imagine that, companies in the US and UK would actually offshore their,
jobs to India.
Oh yeah, it was not easy to, imagine that.
Right.
But as I said, if it has happened there, it can happen here. Right, like if we put 3 or 4 people on site at the customer side who will deal with the hiring managers, deal with the TA heads, get the requirements from there, and then back it up with an offshore team who will source the candidates, sitting in the offices of the vendor, which is our offices, right? This should be able to work, right? The same model that the software industry did, we should also be able to do.
Okay.
Right. So that is how this whole, in fact, my earlier name for this was not RPO, it was called offshore recruitment centers.
Okay.
Right, because in software it was called ODC, offshore development center.
Right, so mirror that.
Yeah, so I remember I wish I had that brochure. I released the brochure in 2002 and where I'd used this word, offshore recruitment center. So there are like people sitting on site and then there is this whole team sitting offshore.
Right, interesting. So in fact, when you were also referring to this whole challenge of, access to talent, so we used to run this career line. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. So there was this number that candidates could call, and we had to stay back at office till about 9:30, 10. Not something which I enjoyed doing.
And I used to hear about that a lot.
But we would actually get calls from candidates, So, but yeah, that problem did get solved by the job boards.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's been a very nice evolution of recruiting, so to speak. But after which, I also remember, Gautam, that we've been discussing this a lot. So there are also a lot of limitations when it comes to RPO, right? And so, do you want to just touch upon some of those limitations that you, as an RPO, entrepreneur, as one of the initial stalwarts in the RPO space, that you faced?
So, if you look at the RPO model, the way it was conceptualized in 2003, 2004, 5, the years that you talked about, right? The idea was that sourcing, right, can be done offshore, right? And you need specialists for that, right? So the whole idea, at least in my head, was that most people in corporates don't want to do sourcing; they want to do processing. Okay. They want to do interviews. They want to do do hiring manager stuff. But sourcing is a heavy lift job. Okay, it's tough. Right, and it can become frustrating, right? Because you may not get candidates to respond to you all the time. Right. I mean, both of us have done sourcing.
Absolutely.
There are days where you really feel angry, right? Maybe somebody's rude to you, right? Yeah. Hey, why are you calling me right now? I'm busy. And I've told you don't call me. Put the phone down. And nobody likes to hear all that, right?
Absolutely.
And even when you send a mail, people are not polite all the time, right? So it's a difficult job to do.
Especially because it's also passive talent that you're probably
it's your passive talent, and even if it's talent which is available on the job board, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be interrupted all the time.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's an interrupt, right? I'm doing something right now at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then you're giving me a call. So whatever. So and remember these were days before the calendar and all that, right? Yeah. Like now, of course, there's Google Calendar and all that. People can fix it. But those days there was nothing. People just call randomly. Yeah. So it's not an easy job to do at all. It's a very tough job. I think people don't realize that, right? I think a lot of corporates don't realize the fact that sourcers are probably the most neglected, right, in the whole hierarchy, right? Also because they're fairly junior, right? Yeah. So in my mind, I was like, if I can, give them respect and create a specialized career path for sourcers, then I can attract better talent on sourcing as compared to a corporate. Like, I can actually show a sourcer how they can rise in the hierarchy and make a career for themselves in recruitment.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. In fact, the whole objective, I remember when I used to talk to these talent acquisition leaders in 2003, 2004, and I won't name the guy, but very close friend of mine, and running TA for, at that time, maybe a 2,000 crore company, right? And I remember I was sitting in his office, we were having coffee, and I told him, I said, look, I can enter your office and pick up your best sourcer and hire him. And he was like, what are you saying? I said, yes. Because in your company, he will not have the kind of career path that I can offer.
Okay.
Right? Because sources in companies basically join HR. Right? That's the career path. Now, what if I don't want to join HR? Right? Then there's no other career path for me.
Right.
Because beyond a point, it will be difficult for me to progress in the organizational hierarchy. That is where the concept of RPO started. I say, like, if I can provide that kind of career path, right, then maybe I can hire sourcers, like thousands of sourcers, right? That is how it started, right? From a career pathing perspective.
There's a lot of resilience that is required to be a sourcer, right? They have to be very resilient. They have to be, actually, it's more than the HR, inclination. I think it's also to do with a lot of sales inclination.
Yes.
Because sourcers, recruiters are probably, they do thrive on these sales characteristics.
Yes. And the sad part is, people who do HR, quote unquote, in an MBA program, end up joining the recruitment function, right? While it should be people who do sales who should end up joining the recruitment function. The recruitment function is all about sales, by rightly said, right? Yeah. And especially in tech, I mean, if you're in IT, then it's 100% sales, right? But even in other functions, it's very number driven, right? So the inclination should be a person who is comfortable hitting a number target.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Which is sales. Right? Sales, if you don't hit a number target, there's no sales, right? So the whole thing was that, right? And therefore, in that early 2000s, right, the way I was looking at the function was very different from the way other people were. People were looking at recruiting as a part of HR. I was looking at recruitment as a specialized function by itself, which needed a different set of people to execute, not as a stepping stone to getting into HR.
Okay.
Right, which is what organizations are looking at, right? And for me, a lot of the RPO thinking during those times were also coming because of this, right? Because I was seeing this as a gap. Right. I mean, apart from other issues on the demand side, but on the supply side, I was seeing it as a gap, saying that, hey, there are no specialized companies which can give a career path to people who want to be recruiters all their lives.
Right.
Why should I be doing recruiting only for 5 years? Why can't I do it for 30 years? Right. I can do sales for 30 years. I can do marketing for 30 years. I can do HR for 30 years. I can't do recruiting for 30 years because after some time, I will be asked this question. How will I grow in my company if I don't switch to HR? Right. Okay. And that also.
But that in many ways, I think, has changed.
That has changed. Thankfully, that has changed. Yeah. Some of it has changed for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So RPO has now been a solution for a couple of decades, right? And there are still limitations.
Correct.
Right. So, what do you think are some of the limitations? Is it that, is it a cost? Is it the speed? Is it probably, dependency on one vendor? So, what is it?
I think fundamentally, and once TVA got acquired, the thought which struck me, and this was a bit after that, was that it is still not really solved the sourcing risk problem. Right. And RPO is basically a single vendor who takes over all your sourcing. Right. That's what is called an enterprise RPO, which is what we were doing, if you remember in those days. Right. We were basically taking over the talent sourcing for one company, or in some cases for one skill, or in some cases for one location. Right. These were 3 ways we were cutting it. Right. Yeah, we were cutting it. Now the problem is that what if we are not able to deliver? Right. So the sourcing risk which an enterprise is taking, basically it is transferring the sourcing risks internally to externally. Like earlier, the sourcing risk was my own recruiters. Like if I have a team of 10 recruiters,
correct.
What if they can't deliver? Right? Then I can still go out to vendors. So I still have some backup. Now I've given it to an RPO saying I have just transferred the sourcing risk. But the risk still remains. What if the RPO cannot deliver? Then RPO has to go to vendors. But the problem with RPO going to vendors is because the pricing models have been adjusted in such a fashion that then the RPO going to a third party vendor, it becomes less effective.
Got you.
Because it is not the regular contingent pricing, which both you and I know, right? Like it's not your 8.33 or 9%, which is what the market pricing in India, for example, is, or 25% in the US, but it's much reduced, right? RPO is obviously on a reduced price points and a lot of them is flat rates. So the problem with the RPO model is that end of the day, you have still not eliminated the sourcing risk.
Correct. So it's always probably dependent on, how many recruiters you have on board, what is the kind of quality of these recruiters and things like that also, right? So there are multiple aspects that actually come into this.
Yeah, and recruiter attrition. So if I have given it to, say, vendor A, who's my RPO vendor, and I have 40 sources, just a random example, and each of these sources is sourcing 3 people a month. So I'm hiring 120, right? Now out of this 40, there will be somebody doing 6 and somebody doing 1. We know that. Both of us have run recruitment teams. Yeah. The problem is the 1 guy will never leave, but the 6 guy might leave. Now imagine in a team of 40, I have 3 people doing 6 a month. Now all 3 have left. So 6 plus 6 plus 6, 18 have gone. Although only 3 have left. Then what happens next month? I am back to a sourcing risk.
Absolutely.
So I won't hit my number because I have replaced them. Yes, I can. But those replacements will not hit 6. Right? Even if they are damn good, they will take 2 or 3 months. So I'm wobbly. Then I need to give it out to some third party vendor and then dependent on that vendor, and that vendor may not deliver. So you're back to the sourcing risk. That's one problem. Second is I'm doing 120. Suddenly I need to do 160. Right? The business changes, right? Business demands can fluctuate. Right? Now I have a problem because my vendor is set up at 120. Right? Now, if I go back to my RPO vendor saying, you know what, next month I need to do 160, how will he do it?
Absolutely. So the scale is a big issue.
So
right?
the up and down will be a problem. Right? So that's the other piece. Third is that a lot of RPOs are a fixed plus variable model. Right? They have a fixed cost and they have a variable model. Now, the problem with the fixed plus variable model is that I'm incurring costs every month, even though my hiring may have come down. Right? So today I'm doing 120. Tomorrow I'm doing 60 a month. But I'm still paying that fixed cost.
So sustaining the profits is going to be a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge for me, right? No. So the RPO will still want the fixed cost. But for the customer, it will be a bit of an issue.
Absolutely.
Right? So there are multiple issues in the traditional RPO model. It is still better than the older in-source model, but the problem is that you still haven't solved for these 3 or 4 fundamental problems.
Absolutely.
Right. Therefore, scaling it, right? Why isn't the RPO today $100 billion business? It should be. It's not. Yeah. It's not even a $10 billion business. Right? It's been around for 20 years. That's the problem. In a $75 to $80 billion recruiting industry, I'm talking just the perm hiring market, right? The RPO piece is still less than 10%. After 25 years.
After 25 years.
That tells you something.
Yeah.
Right? It should be at 50%. If it was that good, why isn't the RPO industry worth $35 billion or maybe $40 billion? It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not even close to it. Right? Because of these problems.
So actually that brings me to the topic of, building Cebrex, right? So can you probably just take us through the trigger, the thought process behind, building Cebrex as a vendor marketplace?
I think, again, back to sourcing, right? I think there are 2 fundamental points in sourcing which people don't understand. One is that talent sourcing is an individual skill. It's not a scale skill. So let me explain this.
Okay.
Right. If I'm building a table, right, and I get 5 people to work on this table, the table will get built faster.
Correct.
Right? Versus 1 person. If 1 person takes 10 days, 5 people should take 2 days. Random maths, right? That's what the meaning of scale is. But in recruiting or in talent sourcing, it works the opposite. Okay. If I have 1 person sourcing 6 people and I put 2 people, they won't source 12.
Okay.
Right? Because sourcing is an individual skill.
So it's not something that can be replicated.
It can't, it can be supplemented. Right? In a table, somebody will make the leg, somebody will make the top, somebody will do the varnishing, right? There are 6 things to make a table, 6 actions. Then what I do is I get 6 people and tell all these 6 people, hey, you do the legs, you do the top. So it'll get built faster. But in sourcing, it doesn't work like that. It's like a single person skill. Right? If 1 person sources, right, and it takes him 1 hour to source, right? If I get 2 people, it won't take him half an hour. It'll take him more. Because sourcing does not scale by adding people. That's the biggest problem with the sourcing business.
That's a very interesting way of looking
it's a very, very individual skill. So the whole idea of Cebrex, right, way back, was the fact that if you look at the sourcing industry, again, we're talking only talent sourcing right now, it's probably among the most fragmented industries in the world. right? There are, in a $75 billion play, there are more than 1 million recruiting firms.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like a long tail business in the internet language, right? So there are many firms, they're very small, right? Because you can't scale sourcing. Right, so there are 2-3 people doing sourcing, they're doing damn well. For themselves, they're doing very well. But if they become 10, it doesn't mean they'll become 3 times more productive. In fact, they'll probably drop. Productivity will drop, profits will drop, right? Your revenue will go up, obviously, because you'll place more people. But that doesn't mean anything. Your margins will come down. So, end of the day, the money that you put in your pocket will be lesser, right? And that's the problem, right? Which is why so few companies have managed to scale. I mean, even if you look at globally, how many recruiting companies have more than $100 million in revenue? Hardly. You can count them on 2 hands.
And even these recruiting companies are also limited by so many other aspects, right?
Yeah.
It's about like whom do I know or where am I located, and maybe they're just very good at what they do, very good at sourcing as a function. And maybe they don't have the sales skills or the marketing skills. But it's unfortunate that they don't get the access to these enterprises, which, where the need is actually there.
That's on the business development side.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. So that's probably one big challenge that recruiting firms
That's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
But if you look at the idea of CBREX, like the main thing is that, hey, can we build a platform which can aggregate the best sourcing talent in the world? Right? That's how CBREX started. Like these are people who are in multiple locations, maybe 5,000 locations in the world. Locations, right? Different cities.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows who they are. Right? They're damn good at what they do. They're very small. And they probably remain small all their life. They're like 2, 3, 4 people. It's like craftsmen, right? It's like a boutique skill, right? Again, it's not a skill set. But they're damn good, right? Is it possible to bring them together on one platform and then build technology which can identify these people? Like who are the good ones for particular skill areas, particular geographies? That, if you ask me, was the beginning of CBREX. The whole idea came from that single insight, that sourcing is an individual skill. Not a scale skill. And therefore, there are many good sources who are very small and they are spread in various parts of the world and nobody knows who they are. And they will never know who they are. Because they will not have a storefront like a website. They will not have marketing muscle, like you said. They are not going to be on social media. They don't have the sales skill. Like they're not going to have a BD team doing outbound calling every day saying, hey, can I send my... They don't have all that.
So most recruiters, it's not necessary that the good recruiters are located only in tier 1 cities, right? Or maybe tier 2 cities. But most enterprises are located in tier 1, tier 2 cities. So what happens to those sources who are, probably located in, other places?
They come to CBREX.
Now they come to CBREX.
Now they come to CBREX. Right. No, you're right. I mean, that's a great point. I think that's something, that's again an insight which you can only have if you've been doing this. Right. And I think it's true with any kind of demand and supply, right? If you look at it, most of the demand is in the larger cities. I'm talking about of the world. So I'm going a bit beyond India here. So that's the way economics is structured, right? Larger cities have the big organizations. Right. But that's a large population. Absolutely. I mean, London, Paris, New York, Mumbai, Bangalore, and so on and so forth. But all the suppliers need not be based in those cities. Right? Because especially in a business model where the suppliers are small, it makes more sense to be located in smaller cities because your cost is lower. Right? If I'm a large supplier, then I can be based in Mumbai. But if I'm a small supplier, I want to be based in Kolhapur. Because my rentals are like 1/20th. Compare Mumbai rentals and Kolhapur rentals. I mean, not even in the same frame, right? So I can build a far more successful company in Kolhapur. Why don't I do it? Because, as you rightly said, I don't have access to demand. The demand is in Mumbai. So I'm forced to move from Kolhapur to Mumbai, upset my entire gross margin, hire far more expensive resources, right? Not better. I'm not using the word better. I'm using the word expensive, right? It's not that resources in Mumbai would be better than Kolhapur. Maybe Kolhapur is very good, right? But the problem is that I don't have demand. Now, when you look at a platform like ours, like CBREX, right? We have solved for that, right? Back to the sourcing issue we were discussing earlier. So now the good sources or the excellent sources can be located anywhere in the world.
And they can work for themselves.
They work for themselves and they can now access demand from anywhere else in the world.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, that problem is something that we have solved. Right. We've solved for the fact that you don't have to be located in a Mumbai or in a New York to source for a Mumbai or a New York. Right.
Yeah.
As long as you are good, right, you could be located in Kolhapur or even in a smaller city than Kolhapur, like a smaller place than that, and still be very, very successful and have a damn good life. Like live well and acquire the kind of wealth that you want to acquire.
Absolutely.
Right. You don't have to be, you're not forced to move to a different city.
So to a large extent, we've actually solved the problem of the sourcing risk that RPOs would originally, were facing, right? And we've also with Cibrex, we've enabled access to, for enterprises to access recruiting agencies across the globe, specialist recruiting agencies across industries. And we've been very successful so far. We've closed jobs across 32 countries. And now we're also going to be launching the next phase of RPO, what we call a CPRO, Cibrex Precision Recruitment Outsourcing.
Yeah.
Right. So let's dive more into it in episode 7.
Yeah.
And but I think that's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and that you and I have spoken about this earlier, right? It's going to be a game changer, but it requires a full episode. But let me just add to some point to what you were saying on the sourcing risk, right? So when we were looking at the RPO, the way you and I were doing it 20 years ago, right, with TBA, right? And as we discussed, the sourcing risk was the biggest issue. We have basically now distributed the sourcing, right? So earlier, the RPO had a problem of a single channel, a single point of failure.
Right.
Because if this particular vendor doesn't deliver, then I'm in a soup.
The single vendor dependency.
Which is your sourcing risk.
Right.
And with a platform like ours, right, what we have fundamentally done on the demand side or for the demand side is that we have taken care of that problem. So we have distributed that across 100 vendors or 50 vendors or whatever. You can pick any number. And therefore, even if one among the 50 fails,
you have a backup.
Yeah, you have several backups. So it's 1 on 50, it's 2%.
Right.
So from 100% concentration, it's 2%.
Right.
At 2%, it doesn't really matter.
And of course, the platform is also built in such a way that, most of the tasks which are redundant, which are probably repetitive, are going to be automated. Right? So that, of course, is like a very big plus of the Cibrex platform.
That's the beauty of technology.
Right. And, but I think CPRO is going to be very interesting. So let's talk about it in episode 7.
We will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've now solved for the problem of sourcing.
Correct.
Right. And we've also enabled access for enterprises to specialist recruiting agencies. And this is across the globe. And but this is just probably half the battle.
Correct.
Right? Solving for supply.
Correct.
Now we need to make process more efficient.
Correct.
And I think that's what we're going to be talking about with the launch of our new service, which is CPRO, Cibrex Precision Recruitment Outsourcing. But very excited, and it's been lovely having this podcast with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah.